some of our kids would really benefit from them watching us fail and apologize for it and make it right. Like we don't,
Yeah.
how many kids never heard their mom or dad say, "Hey, I'm sorry. I overreacted. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have said that. Do you
Mm-hmm.
forgive me?" I'll be honest to say, I think the millennials have not done a great job of that. Again, Simon Sinek's
Mm-hmm.
words, not mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
generation is a product of failed parenting strategies. I think we have
100%.
to help them to understand the value in doing hard things. I recently heard an interview with Dr. Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about walking somebody through some of their most meaningful things they'd ever done. And he equated all of the most meaningful things that this guy had ever done or accomplished, all were through the path of adversity and challenges. One of the temptations that we have to do, or one of the mistakes, he has a book, I think 12 Huge Mistakes Parents Can Avoid, highly recommended, by the way. But he said one of them is we try to prepare the path for the children, but what we need to do is prepare the children for the path.
Welcome to Tete, a place for truth, hope, and healing. And today I have a very special guest with me here. This is my pastor. So we're in Florida here. This is Cory Demmel. I have to say, before I even introduce him, he is, I don't want to say favorite pastor, but if I were to say I have a favorite pastor, he would be it. Just because he's young and we have a lot of things, I feel like we have a lot of things in common, and the way that he preaches the gospel is just exactly right up my alley. And so I'm just very, very happy. So not that long ago, we sat down, we talked about a few things, and I just thought everything that we talked about would be so beneficial to everybody watching today or will be watching in the future. So I know he's super busy and it took a little while, but I'm just very, very elated that he actually found the time today to sit down with me. And I hope you guys get a lot of value out of this. Without any further ado, please welcome Pastor Cory Demmel. Cory, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
I totally can. Thank you so much, Smith. It's great to be here. It's cool to be on these. It's a million times better to do it with somebody you know, like a friend.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
said, we see each other, dap each other up most weekends.
exactly.
Both
Yeah,
got a
yeah,
lot going on, so
yeah.
I'm so glad to be on here, and with your audience whenever and wherever it may be.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm excited because like for me with this channel too, I always want to make sure that authenticity and organic is basically what that's the kind of vibe that I put out. And again, from every single Sunday when I see you on stage, the message that you deliver, I keep getting exactly those same vibes. And I think if we have transparency in what we're saying, sometimes we might not even be making a whole lot of sense, but at least people watching, they can see the genuine effort or everything that we are standing for, and hopefully they can get value out of that. And I think that's what this
Yeah.
is all about. So today we're going to
Well,
talk about,
I'll
go ahead, go
jump in
ahead.
on that. I was to say, to
Yes,
your
please.
point, we were literally just talking about that off screen or before you
Mm-hmm.
hit record about, the babies in the background, and you're
Yeah,
like, "Hey,
yeah.
I'm like, hey, anybody who's ever had kids, that's so real." And
Yeah,
we were just
yeah.
talking about, in my experience, both in the public communication sector, business sector, we did school assemblies 25 years ago, was I think people are kind of done with the polished, perfect product. And now people just want authentic. They want real. I think it was John Maxwell or somebody said, they'll follow you and respect you for your strengths, but they'll connect to you
Mm-hmm.
through your weaknesses or your realness. And so I'm just a big fan of authenticity. I mean, again, you've known me for a while. I don't,
Mm-hmm.
that's nothing flashy. We're all just imperfect people trying to figure this thing out.
Hey, listen, man, I can go down a whole rabbit hole as to where I came from as far as Haiti, like basically from absolutely nothing. So I was recently talking to my neighbor. So I was at his house and we were talking about like rich people and their behaviors and stuff like that. I never put everybody in the same box, but most rich people, they're just, for me personally, I don't want to be around them. And I kind of correlate what the Bible says about being harder for a rich person to get in heaven as opposed to a poor person. And I can see those characteristics. And again,
Mm.
I personally don't believe it's because you have money you can't get to heaven. I think that's people go wrong when they read that verse. But it's just those things that they stand for, the lack of genuine, I guess,
Like
personality, like
authenticity. Yeah.
authenticity. Yeah, exactly. You can't relate, and to relate, you feel like you have to give up something, and that's something I never want. Like, well, I'm not rich, but if I ever become rich, to be rich and not being able to relate to people, and
Yeah.
when you talk to me, you should be able to like tell this guy's come from poverty because he
Mm.
speaks that language. He speaks that
Mm.
genuine tongue that we're used to. That's comforting. That's I live for that. So as my
Yeah.
little angels are making a nice,
I
beautiful
love it.
sound in the back.
Yeah. Children are a gift from God, man.
Yes,
And you know
sir.
what?
Absolutely.
Babies are supposed to act like babies. They're supposed to
Exactly.
cry. They're supposed to
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
we can't make them, we can't
Right.
modify behavior of a 3 year
No.
old so they don't inconvenience us. Like our job is to
Exactly.
sacrifice for
Yeah.
them. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah. Yeah. In a way, I'm very happy that they're actually waking up from their naps, because on this channel, I talk about parents. I talk
Mm.
about, how to instill and inculcate the right
Yep.
values into your
Yep.
kids. So, and I always say that I have 4 kids. My number one job is to provide and be there for them
Absolutely.
financially, emotionally, spiritually,
Yep.
all the categories. So
Yep.
again, I preach it. You can obviously hear it. They're in the back making noise.
Yes.
So here's speaking of the youth and what we can do for the youth. So, and how we can prepare, like do our best so that the youth, whether it's our own kids that we know, or our society in general here in America, or perhaps even around the world. The first question is, what does a better future look like for today for the youth, in your opinion?
I love that question. And for whatever it's worth, for context, I did youth and young adult ministry for 16 years. I did public
Mm-hmm.
school assemblies for 5 years, and so I cut my teeth in leadership and in
Yeah.
ministry with youth and young adults. Obviously, I have 2 kids. I actually my gap is so big. I have two. They're both in different generations. Like
Yeah.
one's
Yeah.
alpha, and so with the 10-year gap. But I love that question because I think when you say what can we do to offer them a better future, that's been the
Mm-hmm.
question for generation, right?
Sure. Sure.
And I
Yeah.
think that there's an element of that where we go, man, I want them to not have to have some of the challenges we have. I want them to have it
Mm-hmm.
easier than I had it. But I also think we have to be careful with that. Now, you and I have different backgrounds. I came from a rural community in Nebraska. You
Mm-hmm.
came from Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the same tone of skin. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot about our story is different. But I think what's interesting is I think we got to be careful not to take just that idea too far. Well, I just want them to have it easier than I have it,
We don't want to pamper them.
because I think we have made it really easy
Yeah.
for the last
Yeah.
couple generations. And
Yeah.
one of the things that we can do to prepare them, give them a better future, I'd even say than what our current reality is, I think we have to teach them some resilience. I
One
think we
hundred
have
percent.
to help them to understand the value in doing hard things. I recently heard an interview with Dr. Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about walking somebody through some of their most meaningful things they'd ever done. And he equated all of the most meaningful things that this guy had ever done or accomplished, all were through the path of adversity and challenges. And so
Yes.
I'm not saying we need to beat them, make it hard on them, abuse them. That's the stuff
Mm-hmm.
we need to not do.
Yeah.
And we do want to offer them a better life, but I think we need to be careful what we mean by better.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can often equate better to easier, better to more comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
better to without challenges. But you and I both know, we've been around, man. Like that's just not happening. Like
No.
that's not
No
possible.
way.
I love what Dr. Tim Elmore says. He says one of the temptations that we have to do, or he has a book, I think 12 huge mistakes parents can avoid,
Sure.
highly recommended, by the way. But he
Okay.
said one of them is we try to prepare the path for the children, but what we need to do is prepare the children for the path. And what he means is
That's
he's
good.
talking to these helicopter parenting of like, you get a bad grade and you go stomp in the principal's office and demand to talk to the teacher. And, you don't want your son to bat anywhere under the fourth in the T-ball team.
Mm-hmm.
And what we try to do is we try to make everything easy and cushy and cozy for
Right.
our kids.
Yeah.
But then we send them out to a world that's going to eat them alive.
Yep.
The job
Yep.
interview, the girlfriend who's going to dump you,
Yep.
the boss that didn't read a leadership book growing up, didn't go
Mm-hmm.
to our leaders lunches that we go to,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think there has to be, what can we do to better prepare them? I do also think that one of the things, so I think we have to understand, like, one of the things we can do is prepare them for, create a safe, you already said it, emotionally, physically, spiritually safe environment to grow up in, but also in a way where we allow them to do hard things, we allow them to fail,
Yeah.
and we don't just, and we teach them again that failure isn't fatal. I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the tragedies that's happening with this generation is I've heard a narrative that I don't have to worry about failing if I never give it my full effort. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think we have to teach them, like, to give their all.
Mm-hmm.
And then that concept that failure is not fatal. And
Yeah.
then another thing I think we can do is we have to teach some emotional health and emotional resistance. I'll be honest to say, I think the millennials have not done a great job of that. Again, Simon Sinek's
Mm-hmm.
words, not mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this generation
Yeah.
is a product of failed parenting strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And we have now a bunch of adults that are they're not very secure. They're not very emotionally healthy. We have a bunch of coping mechanisms. We
Yeah.
haven't really worked through our own stuff.
Hmm.
And so we're triggered, and we demand so many things from the world. And now we're raising children. And I say I'm not a millennial, I'm Gen X. I'm on the back end of that. Older than I look, the lighting has moved away some of the wrinkles. But I think that even that idea of like just that what can we do to help them have it better? We got to drop this idea that the world owes them something. Like
Mm.
nobody owes you anything. It's that Rocky, what is the Rocky
Yeah.
Balboa quote to his son? Like,
Yeah.
it's not about if you get hit, it's how many times you can get hit, get back up. The world isn't always flowers and rainbows. It doesn't owe
Hmm.
us anything.
Hmm.
And so like that whole get out and go, like make a way, work hard, be respectful. I think it's some of the values of our
Hmm.
fathers and grandfathers.
Yeah.
And maybe this is it, Smith.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think we need some of the values of the older generations, but we need a better approach. Maybe that's the nuance.
I like that. I like that
Rub
for
some,
sure.
it's a little bit more than rub some dirt on it, but a
Yeah.
little bit of work ethic, a little bit of grit. And so I think that, and then the other thing is, man, one of the greatest things we can do them to do is we have to teach them to think for themselves. We have to teach them the art of critical thinking. Don't believe everything you
Yeah.
hear. Don't believe every
Independence.
headline you read. And then again, the thing that kind of scares me a little bit is, we got these echo chambers, and as a pastor, we got thousands of people in our church. Like
Yeah.
we got
Yeah.
adults that are losing their minds, and we have the
Yeah.
algorithm, man. The algorithm of social media, YouTube, and whatever
Yeah.
just feeds you more of what you want. And so
Yeah.
one of the things that I always was taught by my mentors and pastors growing up, and even some of
Hmm.
my teachers, was don't just listen to and read everything you agree with.
Hmm.
Get different, learn to value different perspectives. And so I think that idea of some of the values, doing some hard things, but really like how can we teach them to critically think? I mean, some of the interviews, even at these colleges, again, I watch everything on both sides of the political aisle, and
Same.
even
Same here.
theological aisle. Yeah, that's where we've connected. But these guys, they'll interview these college students, and they're like, da, da, da. And it's like, can you cite one source? Why do you think that? And they have nothing to say other than they saw it on X, or it was some headline, some TikTok video. And one of the questions that kids that are close to me, my nieces, nephews, my daughter, and anybody I've ever engaged on in social media, which is very rare because almost nothing good ever comes out of that, is
True that.
when my daughter would come back like, oh, you do that, I'm like, what's your source? What's your source? Like, just the question of what is your
Hmm.
source? Where'd you get that information? Is it objective? Did you collaborate with some other 14-year-olds? Did you
Hmm.
read that in a book from, versus that? And so like, how can we take information? And then the other thing is that just as a lost art. Again, I'm kind of
Hmm.
I'm shotgunning your question. Is
Yeah. Yeah. No.
we
Let's
we
do
have
it.
to like we have to I think we got to teach kids how to think from the other side of the coin, think from the other perspective. Again, the ministry I grew up in the school assemblies we did, it was all about walking a mile in somebody else's shoes. And so
Hmm.
one of the things that I try to do is, even if let me grab something. I'm gonna grab my wallet.
Yeah. Do it.
Like I right here, I got a Ridge wallet.
Okay.
And if I'm ask you, if I'm going to tell you, hey Smith, tell me about my wallet,
Hmm.
you're gonna tell me about a money clip with some cash in it,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna be like, no way, bro, it's just a metallic Ridge wallet. You can't barely even see my driver's license.
Yeah.
Who's right? We're both looking at the
We're
same
both.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've lost the ability to go. I hadn't considered it from that perspective. Oh, I never even looked at it like that. Look at that, and go, man. I want to listen with the intent to understand versus listen with the intent to form an opinion and be right.
Yes.
So that's what I mean by like the critical thinking, and it's the danger of the information age is there's never been more information out there. How do we know it's true? How do we know it's relevant? How do we know it's beneficial? It's funny, I'm not on Facebook much. We have a social
Hmm.
media team that posts for me, but
Hmm.
there was some post about, what was it? Just yesterday, something about I can't even remember what it was, but I was like, man, that's so cool if it's true. And then of course, like 7 comments down, it was like, this isn't even true. This is a different story from somebody else in 2002.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but we just
Yeah.
believe it. And we're like, repost. This is awesome. It's like, that didn't even happen, and he didn't even say that. You know what I
That's
mean?
crazy. That's crazy. I mean,
It it's only
again,
going to get worse too.
that's the. I was just with a. What is it?
AI.
AI.
Yeah.
AI is like a scary thing, man. I watch a little bit too much. Not really news, but just like yourself, I watch stuff from the left and from the right, and then I'm left trying to figure out. Okay. So this is that. So it kind of becomes homework for me. So I'm trying to figure out.
Yes.
Okay, that is very biased. I don't think that is true. That might be true, but maybe they are a little bit too far
Right.
left. So like I'm trying to figure out the right thing in order to be level-headed. And actually when I speak, I'm speaking what is actually truthful and not just like I'm parroting some left propaganda or some right propaganda, because I don't like to say that I'm any particular side, because I'm not. If anything, if I have to choose one, I am independent and I might be leaning different
Yeah.
way, left or
Based
right.
on the issue. Right.
Exactly,
Same.
exactly.
I've told people you can find me in the
Yeah.
middle.
Exactly, because I think it's so horrible when people just like choose a side. I mean, like you hear people saying like I've been a Democrat, like my family, like everybody's been a
Yeah.
Democrat, so I grew up to be a Democrat. But
Right.
what is a Democrat? What do they believe in? What kind of policies are you exactly
Why are
fond
you a
of?
Democrat? Or
Why
why
are
are
you a
you
Democrat?
Republican? Yeah.
Exactly, vice versa. But they don't know. So you find a culture where people tend to just like gravitate towards like the shiny thing or whatever somebody's been
Yeah.
doing. Like they don't care to do their own research. And
Yes.
to bring it back to the kids again, so as adults are acting that way, the kids are just sponges. So they're just gonna be like, "What?
Right.
Just I'm gonna do this because that's what my dad did. That's what my mom did. That's
Why
what my
would we
uncle did."
expect the kids to do anything else if
Exactly.
that's what we're doing in our home and at coffee and at dinner and they see what we're posting on
Right.
Facebook? Nailed it. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think it's just so detrimental to the next generation. And I feel like that's probably something that people have been saying for centuries. Like,
Sure.
hey, we need
Yeah.
to make the next generation better. I
If there
grew
was a
up
podcast about our generation, they would have said the same thing about us.
exactly, exactly. But I think the key is to more people like myself to just keep doing that.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Keep the
care like who.
conversation going.
Right, right. So in this space, it's all about content. It's all about eyeballs. And sadly, that's the name of the game. So if you have a message, you want people to see it. So it's just the way it goes. But you can see it in two different lights. There are people who are just out there just trying to get clicks, just trying to get views and stuff like that, just so they can be relevant. I could care less about being relevant. I wish I could actually put on like a mask and then I'm just talking
Right.
something that's truthful, something that's of value. But I'm just behind, like people don't even know me, right? But obviously, it wouldn't really work out that way. But people just need to understand sometimes, just like you said, it's not about just looking at just one side or just be biased, but look at both sides. Is it
Yeah.
objective, or you just like doing it because it's based off of your feelings, stuff like that, which is another really, really scary thing when you act with just your feelings,
Yeah.
which we've seen
Well,
that a
we
lot.
we told this generation for the last 10 years now, whatever you feel is truth and it's your truth and don't let anybody tell you it's not. It's like,
Exactly. Yep. So
oh,
that's a
I'm
scary
sorry.
thing right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is what used to be like laughably silly is now like unbelievably controversial. Well, who are you to tell me I'm not a cat? I don't know how
Yeah.
to break this to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. See, that's the
You
crazy
know,
thing too.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So speaking of that, like for me, I've never been really worried about what people think about me that much or getting in trouble as long as it's the truth. So for example, if I ask you about why are black people so sensitive about this particular subject, I feel like I'm married to a white woman, wonderful woman, great woman, love her to death. I don't like when we have this kind of conversations, like she feels like she has to kind of like wrap it up, just like, just so you know, I'm not this and that. I'm like,
Yeah,
honey,
yeah,
you don't need to tell me that. I know
yeah,
you're not. But
yeah.
if you tell me something that's truthful, stand on it. Hey,
Right,
listen, this group, they're acting this way because of this and this. I think it's wrong. Like you saying that, like we live in a culture where to tell somebody that they're wrong, you almost worried about even what you're telling them that they're wrong about being the truth. You scared to say it because of their
right.
feelings, because they're
Well, that
gonna
goes back
cancel
to
you. They're gonna do this. You know?
yeah. Well, that goes back to what I said. One of the things we can do for our kids, I think we have to again reteach that value of listen with the intent to understand, not just have an opinion or be right. And I think that's where we get ourselves into trouble is the amount of times I've watched or seen debates or online or just interactions where somebody says, "Well, tell me how you feel." It's like I'm just telling you how I feel. And you're like, "Well, you're wrong." I'm like, but he didn't say that the Mayflower didn't land at Plymouth Rock. He said, "This is how I felt about." Like we can't argue about a fact. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And so we're so quick to tell people, "Well, you can't feel that way, and that's not real to you." And
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm just so grateful I had mentors. Again,
Yeah.
some black, some white, some right, some left.
Mm-hmm.
Pick your diversity. That kind of was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, have you thought about it from this angle?" Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know that I agree with that, but I could understand why you would feel that way with your
Sure.
past experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, we've lost the art. And again, I'm not blaming the kid. I want to say one other thing about this in a minute, but we've
Mm-hmm.
lost the art to go. I want to listen with the intent to gain. If we all would just go, I wanted just my perspective to do this by the end of this conversation. But we get triggered, we get mad. Now we go just cancel. You're
Yeah.
out. You're
Yeah.
done.
Take
So
off
now
the
you're
horse
just more
blinders. Yeah.
and now you're more of an echo chamber. But one of the things that really bothers me about it's in light of this generation, but it's not about them, is
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember this happening to us a lot, but I feel like it's just so easy for people to bash on Gen Z, Gen Alpha.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting there, I'm not even going to say them, but I feel like everybody wants to take their shots at this
Yeah.
generation,
Yeah.
but nobody wants to take responsibility for them. And
That's
I
a good
think that,
point. Yeah.
and that is something that's motivating. I love being a dad.
Right.
I love kids.
Mm-hmm.
I went into coaching and teaching so I could pour into the
Mm-hmm.
next generation. I mean, I'm doing
Yeah.
this now, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I just don't think it's fair to heap a bunch of stuff on a bunch of kids that we grew up, that we raised,
Mm-hmm.
and then we poured into them, we mentored them, or we didn't raise them, we didn't mentor
Mm-hmm.
them, and
Mm-hmm.
like you're everything that's wrong with America. I'm like, well,
But yeah, you didn't do your job.
whose
Mm-hmm.
houses did they grow up in?
Mm-hmm.
Whose classrooms did they learn in? What
Yeah.
churches did they sit in every Sunday? Like
Right.
and so I don't want to be somebody who takes these shots at this
Mm-hmm.
next generation, but I'm like, I want to be somebody who takes responsibility for them. And again, you can't find a successful culture anywhere in the history of the world that didn't understand that it was the entire village, the entire tribe, the
It
entire
takes a
nation's responsibility to pour into and invest into the next generation. And we want to, everybody's like, teachers want to hand them to counselors want to hand them to coaches want to hand them
mm-hmm.
to parents are like, I'm busy.
Yeah.
And again, it's complex. There's never a simple solution to a complex problem. But I'm like, man,
Mm-hmm.
where are the ones going like, hey, we'll fix it? And again, that's why I love a lot of my friends. Some of them are investments, but a lot of my friends, even if they're teaching or investing, they're like trying to pour into the next generation. A lot of my friends are teachers, coaches. They're going like, hey, to a generation that's kind of been left to everybody else, like, I'll take him in history class and I'll take him on the football and baseball field,
Mm-hmm.
8 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And so I do think that this generation does get a bad rap because they're like, again, to quote Simon Sinek,
Mm-hmm.
failed parenting strategies, and then we want to blame them on them, but nobody's going like, hey, we're willing to take responsibility, help make up for that. We want to teach you that. I think even when they get to the workforce, some of them, they're demanded to do certain things, but they're actually not
Right.
ever taught how to do them.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. A lot of
Those
something
those are
that I
some of my thoughts.
Yeah, no. A lot of something that I think you actually might know a little bit about. I don't know where it says that something about look at the plank on
The
your
spec,
eyes
yeah.
before. Yeah. Before you see the little speck on your eye.
Before you go pull a 2x4 out of somebody's eye,
Right.
or a speck out of somebody's eye, like, hey, you got something
Yeah,
here. Let's pull
yeah.
that plank, that 2x4.
Look at that plank.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. No, we live
yeah,
in a culture where it's always been that easy, right? It's almost inherent within us to do that. It comes more natural to just like point the fingers, but like my parents always said, why are you pointing one finger? Look at all these ones just pointing back at you.
yeah,
So
yeah,
again, don't be so quick to judge. Don't be so quick to point the
yep,
fingers, but look at what you've got going on
yep.
here first. And I think that's such a great characteristic to be a good
Yes.
parent because like you got to look within. Like a lot of times if your kids are doing something, it's because they're watching you do it. They're
Whose
swearing, they're
whose
treating
whose
people
house did they grow up in? Where'd they learn that?
right,
You know what I'm saying?
exactly. Yeah,
They're,
but
kids
people
are
don't
the
like to take
biggest mirror.
responsibility.
Kids are the biggest mirror we will ever look in front of. And here's
Exactly.
something else too that
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think that I love to encourage parents with is
Mm-hmm.
some of our kids would really benefit from them watching us fail on it, apologize for it, and make it right. Like we don't.
Yeah.
How many kids never heard their mom or dad say, "Hey, I'm sorry. I overreacted. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Do you
Mm-hmm.
forgive me? I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to be better too." Do you know the impact that has on a kid? Like it takes away fear. It teaches them that adults aren't perfect. But again, I think one of the greatest gifts we can give our kids is like we got to show them how to fail. We got to show them how
Mm-hmm.
to be human.
Yeah.
We got to
Yeah.
show them how to mess up. And I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of times I've apologized to my daughter, like, "Hey, listen, I'm s- I'm sorry my tone came out that way. I'm not even mad at you. It doesn't even matter why, because that's an
Mm-hmm.
excuse. I just don't
Yeah.
want to talk to you that way, and I don't want you to feel that way. I'm a work in progress. Do you forgive me? Yeah, Dad, I forgive you." Like all of a sudden, she goes from like triggered and defensive because she's a teenager to like, we have this moment. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's not about me always being right. And I just think again, but to your point,
Mm-hmm.
we've made an entire practice out of let me find a reason why what's going on in me is somebody else's fault
Mm-hmm.
versus at some point you got to take some ownership. And one of my mentors, again, he would always say it might not be your fault, but it's still your problem. And how much of that,
And
like,
you have to
dude, think
deal
about
with
how
it.
much that's like I didn't ask for this and I didn't do this to myself, but it happened to me. And so
Yeah.
I can either stay a victim or stay here, or I can move through or move past it. And again, I
Yeah.
think the more I'm talking about simple stuff, really, because I'm saying the
Mm-hmm.
more we can lead ourselves
Mm-hmm.
as adults, I think the more we can help our kids
Yep.
learn some of those same values and qualities. Most of us don't even know how to lead ourselves. Most of us don't know what our values are. We don't know what characteristics we value. Like, or we'll
Hmm.
say this is important. We'll say it's important to tell the truth. But
Yeah.
then every fourth Friday they watch us call in sick to go golfing with the boys, and they're like, you mean unless there's something better I want to do?" And I think I don't know if you were in church a while ago, but I talked about our kids will always adopt our values, but they'll
I
find
was
their own
there. Yep.
boundaries.
Yes,
So
I
it's what
was
I
there.
mean. Our boundary is we'll only lie to our boss on the fourth Friday of the month, but
Hmm.
the value is I'll lie when it's convenient or when there's something I want to do. They'll
I was
adopt the
there.
value of
Yeah.
I'll lie when I want something to do, but the boundary is
Yeah.
it's at us. And
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
like, how do these kids get so crazy? It's like, well, you yell at people on Facebook, you complain about your boss and your job, and they just don't do it about their boss job at Facebook. They do it to
Yeah.
you, and you're like, where did I lose my kids? I'm like, well, they got your values,
Exactly.
they just pick different boundaries. So I
Yeah.
just think even that one concept to go, if parents and teachers and coaches
Hmm.
and fill in the blank, if we would just go,
Yeah.
what values are these kids inherently adopting by being around me? If we could ask that question, then maybe we would even reevaluate the example that we have in their lives, and then
Hmm.
we can help teach them some boundaries.
Yeah. No,
So
I agree 100%. 100%. So it's the victimhood mentality. That's something that I speak with my wife and other people. That's a topic or a subject that I'm passionate about, but not for like a good reason. It's because I see it so often. And so I'm writing a book right now. It's about CSA, so sexual child
mm,
sexual
mm,
abuse, because I myself went through it. So I'm
yep,
trying to be
yeah.
somewhat of
You're
an
trying to
advocate
use your
for it.
story to empower and advocate for other people. Yep.
Exactly, exactly. But
Yeah.
I already have the next idea for the next book, and it's gonna be about victimhood mentality, because I personally believe it's one of the worst cancer that any of us can
Yes.
have. When when you keep thinking that you a victim, I've never seen somebody who. Well, I have people in my life right now, family members that are so entrenched in this victimhood mentality.
Hmm.
We cannot have a
Yeah.
relationship, and
Yeah.
I'll be the first one to tell you it's not because of me. I recently had a 45-minute conversation with one of them, and it's just she basically said it's there's nothing to be done. When
Yeah.
I'm talking to her, saying like I'm literally calling to see how we can get past that. But her victimhood mentality cannot she can't help but just be marinating in it. And it's so horrible. And we see that within and I can say it a lot of again, that's that truth thing that I talked about. I
Yeah.
think you should be able to see it. I see a lot of that in the black community. It's everywhere. But you can
Yeah.
also point. I'm
Yeah.
gonna point the finger. I think it's so
Yeah.
invasive in the black community where it's just
Yep.
like you have people constantly waiting to, oh, well, you have to do that for me because decades, century ago, like this is what I was. You're the reason. I wasn't there century, like decades and decades ago. I didn't do that to you. Like you gotta at some point you gotta stop making excuses and then pick yourself up and make something out of yourself. But there's so much of that going on. And to me, it's disgusting for me. Like that's
Hmm.
why again, I'm gonna write this book. And again, sadly, it drip like it bubbles
Yep.
up
Yep.
and spills right on the kids. The kids also, oh
Absolutely.
wow, my parents are always complaining about that. They're always saying it's your fault if this happens. If you
Somebody else.
even look at me wrong,
Somebody always owes them something.
exactly. Whether it's the government, whether it's your neighbor, depending
Neighbor.
on like
Yep.
what ethnicity they
Your
are, they owe
boss.
you
Yep.
something. It's automatic.
Yep.
Your boss, you didn't get
Yep.
that. It's
Yep.
because of this. You didn't get this, dude. It is just so nauseating. Like I feel like your potential is like right outside, like right around the corner, waiting
Mhm.
for you. But you so busy, you are blinded by the anger, the rage, the like everything you carrying that you should certainly not be carrying it. But guess what? Society or your family, whatever it is, told you to carry that load, and you just spend all your whole life carrying a load, blaming people, when in fact it can be so much more than that. And
Yeah.
I think again, I can talk about that forever,
Yeah.
but it's just that's my next book.
Well,
So it's just
for what
yeah.
it's worth, I love that you're writing the book because I want to say this. I'm not just pandering you, but that's one of the things I really respect about you is, the first time we got to know each other, you told me your story about Haiti. You had it pretty rough growing up. You even just mentioned just some of the sexual abuse.
Hmm.
Like, you have a lot of reasons to be a victim. You have a lot of reasons to stay a victim, but like the fact that you've risen above it, I just think there is something to be said about, in this day and age, somebody's going to look at somebody like you and you go, I was, abused. I'm from Haiti. They're like, whoa, he can make it. I think you know as well as I do. The fact
Hmm.
that we were lower middle class from a farm town in Nebraska, nobody really
Hmm.
assumes that from me. They're like, another influential white guy telling me, so, but my point is,
Yeah,
I love that you're using your story because I really respect that about you because you do have
appreciate
plenty
it.
of reasons to be and stay a victim. And I think you've even heard me say this at church. The problem with the victim mentality is congratulations, you never have to take responsibility for anything.
Yeah, it's
The,
always somebody else's fault.
but the problem is you're always going to be a victim, which means you're at the mercy of somebody else's hands versus that
Exactly.
idea of like
Right.
rising from the ashes. So I'm excited. I'll read that book.
I appreciate it. I
I think you have
appreciate
a
it.
lot to, I think you have a lot to say on that topic. Yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. So, let's move on to the next
Yeah.
question. So, I
Fire
have
away.
so many questions, but at the same time, as we're talking, that this is what I mean by being organic. I have questions written down, but we cover so many of them
Yeah.
as we're talking. So, like, I don't
Yeah.
even need to go back and ask
You're
them.
like, we already
So
hit that. Yeah.
yeah. Not that one, not this one. Yeah. So, do you think uh, mental illness has,
Mm.
since we talk about,
Yeah.
we can't basically coddle like our kids. We have to.
Yeah.
This world out there will eat you alive. You need to know about it. We need to prep you for it. But at the same time, while you're here, with the way we prep you to face the world
Yes.
matters, and the way we do that. And what's the is there a correlation? And if there is, what can you say about the fact that some people see mental illness as a crutch and some people just get lost into like the cuddling, that helicopter parents, and kind of like at the end of the day, like the kids are gonna be ending up in the same place
Yeah.
where they're not ready to face the world, whether it's because they thought they were, mental illness or
It's a great question and it's a relevant question. And I probably have about three different kind of thoughts that kind of
sure.
all maybe
Yeah.
build, but I love that you're asking it. So first of all, I would say it's just like anything else. I think first of
Hmm.
all, it's nuanced,
Yeah.
meaning there's nothing's black and white. Something's not true for everybody. I think we have to be so careful that we don't look at one individual story in Fox News or one
Mm.
screen grab and go, see, everybody's lying about mental illness or everybody who's mentally ill is like
Yeah.
we have to meet each individual where they're at. But I would say this, I would say mental illness is a real thing. Now, with that said, I think there are people that have worked at everything we've just said. They've worked hard to rise above it. They've gotten medication, they've done the work, they've gotten counseling, they have become as functional as they possibly can. And
Yeah.
they probably just struggle with, whether it's
Yeah.
anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's suicidal thoughts, bipolar. There's so many things. Those things are real.
Yeah.
And I think that there are, but I think what's the whole point of us identifying that? I think we have to understand it's we want you to know that so you know what it is that you're fighting against to make life difficult, and we want to put some tools in your hands to help you overcome it
To
versus
rise
go
above it.
here's why you're never going to have a quality life. And you're just back to your victim mentality. You're always going to
Hmm.
be bipolar. You're always going to be, now there are certain things that are challenging. And again, I'm not a
Hmm.
leading expert. I'm a pastor. I've dabbled in counseling, but I don't have a PhD in
Hmm.
psychology or psychiatry. But I will say, I think mental illness is real. I know people.
Hmm.
I've seen people in our church, people close to me, people that I grew up with that really wrestle with mental illness. In fact, depending on the timeline of this,
Hmm.
there's something that happened in my tiny hometown area where I grew up back home.
Hmm.
It's made national news
Mm.
because of a murder suicide, and it's documented that the husband and wife. It's unbelievably sad and tragic, and
Wow.
it's rocked multiple communities. And it was a guy who, again, kind of a professing Christian, but really wrestled with mental illness.
Mm.
And again, my whole thing is like, man, if you weren't there and you don't know the people, you just don't know. And so
You just don't know. Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
it's real, and I think we got to be willing to like lean into that, have empathy for that. Now, with that said, there's always two sides to every coin. There's
Hmm.
also a side that says we got to be careful not just to slap a mental illness on everybody,
Use it as a crutch.
use it as a crutch, medicate every kid, get them all on all of the things because it does affect brain development. So I think there's certain people that the diagnosis and the treatment has been a game changer. I
Hmm.
also think there's others who, I mean, I have friends that are MDs, and they're like, it's so easy. All you got to do is call my office, and I can get you Ritalin, I can get you a
Mm.
bunch of stuff,
Then I'm
and
hooked up.
with
Yeah,
right behavior modification, and there's no real
yeah.
evaluation, there's no real
Hmm.
even strategy or plan to go, how can we help you through this? Now, again, you and I both know I've never been diagnosed ADHD, but that wouldn't take much. I right, Jay laughs. There you go. So, but
Because you say that all the time, though. I'm
I
like,
right.
and then
Hey,
when you speak, I'm like,
oh, yeah,
I'm trying to
hey,
keep
but
up.
you don't
Trying to
ever
keep up.
stop listening. I
That's
leverage it,
true.
but my point is, I could
Yeah.
use that as a deficiency and a reason why I can't do certain things,
Hmm.
or I could try to understand it, and learn how to leverage it and overcome it the best I possibly can. I
100%.
fortunately for me, I've done enough homework that
Hmm.
we're one of the only countries in the world that calls it a dysfunction. Most of them call it a trait. And I've learned how to
Yeah.
hijack and leverage this constant input, paying attention to all these things. And so, but my point is, I think mental illness is real.
Hmm.
I think we need to evaluate it. I think we need to ask better questions. And again, without me going off the rails, I do think there's a direct link between that and the amount of poison we put in our body every day and the stuff that the FDA approves. And Michael Pollan would agree with me. 17,000 new food-like substances introduced every single year.
I agree.
17,000
That's a
food-like
lot.
substances. Bro, it's
It's a
2025. The
lot.
Earth is somewhere between 6,000 and 6 billion years old. There aren't 17,000 new things God created that we haven't found every year that we can add.
Mm-mm.
I
We're
and
in
I'm
the
not making
lab.
up.
That's where we
And
are. We're in the
we are on
lab.
the lab, and I'm not trying to get political with this because I know it's become
No.
political now. But my
Yeah.
wife has a nutrition and fitness and nutrition education background, and so
Hmm.
for us, part of parenting is what are our kids putting in our bodies. And I'm not saying demon under every rock, and there's
Yeah.
every sugar you eat is another dysfunction. But there's a re- there's a reason that the correlation is what it is. If you track the FDA and you track the stuff we put in our kids, and then if you compare. What's fascinating is if you compare the same foods we eat versus the same exact foods in like Europe, we have so much more obesity and other challenges that they don't have. But
Hmm.
when you look at the ingredients, it's
Hmm.
not the same thing at all. It's
It's not.
not. So again,
I don't. I
my
don't.
my point
Yeah.
is it's multi-leveled,
Hmm.
it's nuanced, and I will say this: I have a ton of compassion and I have a ton of empathy for
Hmm.
any parent who's raising a kid that has mental challenges, mental illnesses, and I have
Yeah.
empathy for any parent who struggles with mental illness. And you're
Hmm.
trying to provide. I mean, think about a dad who's depressed and suicidal, also trying to love his wife, also trying to provide for his kids.
It's a
Thankfully,
lot.
I at
Yeah.
45, I don't 44, I'm almost 45. I don't know what that's like, but I have empathy for that. And I just think we just have to be so careful not just to dismiss or put people, like you said, put people in a box or go, you're making that up or it's not real, or
Hmm.
this one person did this one thing, so every person that has bipolar is this, or every person. It's We have to
Yeah.
treat individuals as individuals. And again, I ran a young
Yeah.
adult discipleship ministry for a lot of years, and we dealt with some people with some real stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
there's some people, the amount of times we had to call the police, the amount of times we had different, but it was like, man, we're just going to keep following the playbook. But
Hmm.
I think if we can continue to love people and be patient with them,
Hmm.
and refuse to, I think just that refuse to go, well, you have a mental illness and it could
Hmm.
be any, I mean, there's the spectrum, there's all the stuff. Go,
Yeah.
well, now we're just going to throw you in this classroom or this box and you just have to settle for this other life. Man, if we can
Yeah.
continue to work with individuals and go, how can we help you have the best quality of life based on the reality that you have?
Hmm.
And I think both matter. I think both, why did we get here? And not whose fault is it finger pointing, but if there are
Hmm.
some things that contributed to it, let's fix it. But
Yeah.
also let's spend the majority of our time and energy going like,
Yeah.
what do we got to do to help you? You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
So
One thing that I really, really love about our church is basically what we stand for: love God,
mm,
love people, right? So, as you were saying, you don't want to get political, but I feel like a mistake sometimes that we make in our society is that we let politics hijack a word or
yes,
or a topic, and
yes,
then we're kind of just like, we don't want to talk about it
we
because
stopped
it will
talking
get
about it
political.
because yeah,
Exactly, but it's
yeah,
not political. Like it's cultural. So, for example, and again, I'm not trying to get into this whole mess, but if we were to talk about the LGBTQ stuff,
yeah,
love God, love people.
yeah,
I have a TikTok account where I posted a video basically talking about what I believe in, my spiritual values, and why I believe this is this is that. This is what I
mm,
think about it. And I think I
mhm,
should be able to talk about it just like you are free to post and make it your life, who you are, your identity. I have an opinion, so I should be able to share. One thing that I made sure to do at the end of it, well, it might have been like in the middle of the video, I said, if you are a transgender, educate me. Let me know why you choose to do that and what you want people to think about you. And what is my point? My point is, as the world is so big, we are so diverse. There's so many people living in the world. We cannot, we're not a monolith. So people are just different opinion, different background, different views. So if you see something, the approach is very important. It doesn't mean that you need to change who you are or what you believe to fit into whatever box. But if you love God, and we are all God's children, we were made in his image, right off the bat, we should have like a level playing field the way we approach people, right? So I love that about our church. And I think to attach that to our youth, to the next generation, to the new generation, is that if we approach it before we just we start pointing the finger saying like this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. We find out where people are coming from. We find out what they're dealing with. Going to mental illness. You don't know what somebody's dealing with. You don't know how they feel. You don't know what they're feeling to make them what made them the way that they are. So I think the approach, whether it's when you're talking to your children, a child, or grown up dealing with whatever it is, because we're so different, you have to pay attention to that. And then if you remember that we're all made in God's image and we need to love God, love people, I think that can help us to bridge a lot of gaps. All right. So what do you think kids today need more at home and more of at home and at school? So, if there is something that you think should be happening a little bit more at home and perhaps in the schools, being that they spend so much time with the teachers at the school. So, what would you like the schools to be doing, teaching, and also what should we be doing as parents to make sure that our kids have a better future?
That's a loaded question. I mean, it's a great
It
question. I mean,
is.
it's
It
like the
is.
$1 million question.
It is.
Let me start at home first. And
Mm-hmm.
again, this is one guy's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
My background is education, family of educators, but I'm just one person. But I'll say, let's start with the home. Again, you'll probably hear me say this again. There's never a simple answer to a complex problem. So
Sure.
there's not one simple, but I would say
Yeah.
one of the things that just kind of breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to speak as a pastor now for a
Yeah.
minute
Yeah.
is
Absolutely.
how many kids don't really get much attention from their parents. They get a home, they might have a pool, they get fed, but I feel like more they're more tolerated than they are loved and invested into and developed. And
Yeah.
so, and I understand you have 4 kids. It's not always easy.
Mm-hmm.
But but I think what they need is they need a parent to like sit down and has the emotional energy to engage them, to meet them where they're at, to
Mm-hmm.
connect with them on
Yeah.
their level. I
Yeah.
see so many even young parents drag their kids to all the stuff their parents still want to do, and they kind of miss the memo that like if you're going to develop and raise children,
Mm-hmm.
you got to set some of your own stuff aside for a little bit.
It's not about you.
It's not about you. So I think as simple as it is, I think there's just not a lot. And again, it's hard because we live in a culture that's their economy's tough and most parents are both working and but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of kids are getting not much of their parents. They're getting
Mm-hmm.
leftover, not much left in the emotional tank. I'm tired, dad's worked hard, I want to watch the
Mm-hmm.
game and man,
Yeah.
kids are dying. They are starving
Mm-hmm.
to get quality time with their parents and kids are dying with their parents. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I've said it from the stage. I'll take it to my grave that kids spell love. It's a 4 letter word, Time. They want quality
Time.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have multiple kids, that looks different for each kids. My kids,
Yeah.
that looks very different. I know yours does. And so I think that. And then another thing, this is tough, and I don't mean any judgment with this, but one of the greatest gifts we can give our kids is a healthy marriage. They
Yes.
need to see a husband love his wife, a wife love
Mm-hmm.
her husband.
Yeah.
They need to see selfless love. They need to see
Mm-hmm.
them serve one another.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to a lot of young people that are like, if marriage is anything like what I saw between the two people who brought me into this world, I don't want to have anything to do
They
with
don't
it.
want it.
Do you
Yep.
know what I mean? And so,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
again, it's always easy to say when you're on the other side of it, but I think, man, like prioritizing family. That's something we do. We prioritize our family a
Mm-hmm.
lot. We say no to a lot of cool things, good things,
Oh
fun
yeah.
things, ministry
Oh yeah.
things, because that's family night, or I'm taking my daughter to dance, or that's my day with my son, or
Mm-hmm.
my son's 4. We don't ever do anything I want to do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Oh
we
yeah.
built
Yeah.
Legos the other day. I'm like, hey, that was
Yeah.
fun. You know what I mean? But usually
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. It's the
but
little things.
it is the little
Yeah.
things, and
Yeah.
but again, it goes back to again a message you heard me speak a while ago is that you have to ask ourselves when we're going to have kids, what's the goal?
Mm-hmm.
Is our goal to like have somebody to love? That's the worst reason to have kids. You need to go to a counselor for
Mm.
that. You know what I
Oh, for
mean?
sure. You need
Is
help.
it
Yeah.
and then it's man, I think for me, we've always said our goal is to have a 30-year-old who loves God and contributes to society. And
Yeah.
I think that goal is a more noble goal than a teenager with a trophy case.
Yeah.
Because I
I
know a
agree.
bunch of, tons of teenagers with trophies that their parents would give them all back to have a relationship with their kid or their kid following God
Absolutely.
or contributing towards
Absolutely.
society. And so I think that comes from that you're not going to find a counselor that's not going to tell you, man, there are things we need and get from our moms and dads. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that time, that attention. And I would say that the undistracted, uninterrupted time. It's the TV's off, phones aren't out, you're not scrolling or you're not posting or, whatever. I think they need those meaningful moments. I think they need that at home. And really, man, as simple as it is, kids need to feel like home is an emotionally safe place. It's a safe place
Yeah.
to be angry. It's a safe
Yes.
place to be sad. It's a
Yeah.
safe place to explore their dreams or their gifts or make mistakes or be kids. Again, there's so many kids that just grow up in dysfunction, or they're so terrified of one of their
Mm-hmm.
parents that they're a shell of themselves. And again, it probably contributes to some of the anxiety or mental illness we're talking about.
Sure.
So I think they need
Absolutely.
that. And then again, I could talk about this question. I could talk about for a long time. And then I think at
Mm-hmm.
school, that's a tough one. I'll give you the title of the book. I don't know that we have time to get into the
Yeah.
chapters, but
Okay.
there we have some amazing people in education. Department of Education. We have some people, amazing people. I have some great friends that are principals, teachers,
Mm-hmm.
coaches, counselors, and we need more great people in education. At the same time, I do think we have an education system that was built for a generation that doesn't exist. Our education
Good
system
point.
still lines up for an industrial age that's long gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we need to catch up with what is the point of education. And my whole thing is, if you're at school 8 hours a day, we should be giving these guys opportunities for life skills that are going to prepare them for the future. And if we need to
Mm-hmm.
change the way we go about it because the world is changing, then let's keep up. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to be able to equip it maybe as unpopular as this might be in some parts of the country. We need to be able to, again, I have friends and relatives that are teachers and professional substitute teachers. We can't put a teacher in a classroom with 28 kids and give them no authority. We've taken all
Yeah.
authority away from the teachers. And so
Yeah.
you can't touch a kid, you can't look at a kid, you can't
Yeah.
make him do anything. I mean, you can get in the way of a chair, but you can't if he's gonna sit under his desk, like, come on. Like,
Yeah. No, it's yeah.
and you
I
can
know
do
exactly
that
what you mean. Yep.
and you
Yep.
can do that without touching a kid, yelling at a kid, berating a kid. And so I think they need that. I think we need to, again, it's crazy to me how kids can go through all that school. The two things that are crazy to me is how many of them graduate high school
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know anything about the economics, really. They don't know anything about the stock market. They don't know anything about job applications or interviews.
How to write a
Yeah,
check.
how to write a check. That was part of
Yeah.
my econ class. We don't give
Yeah.
them those skills. And then here's the other part too. How can you go to school for 8 hours a day, go to practice or musical practice or band practice or whatever for another 2 hours, and then come home? You were there for 8 to 10 hours, and you have 4 hours of homework, bro.
Yeah.
What'd you do for 8 hours?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
No one challenges that, but I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah.
let these kids come home and be kids, especially the elementary
Recess.
and
That's what they do.
bro. Or recess or a 45-minute lecture, and now you got to go
Yeah.
do this math thing, and there's nobody there to help
Mm-hmm.
you. You got to write this. And I'm all
Yeah.
for writing papers. I'm all for math. But again, like, even AI, we got to embrace AI, all that. Like,
Mm.
not, those teachers going, like, you can't use AI. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. How about we teach them what AI is, how to
Yeah.
leverage it, how to use it, how to make your paper better, but you got to write your paper, And so
Yeah.
again, I
Yeah.
think we can't, but again, I feel for
Mm-hmm.
teachers. They're like, I got all these kids. I got no authority. I got no budget. I make
Mm-hmm.
pennies of the dollar what this skill set's worth in the business world. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
They're stretched
the
thin, so
whole
they're
thing,
doing
oh,
the best they can.
man, the
Yeah.
whole thing's kind of,
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah.
And so I think, so again, that's what do they need in school? I think we need to reevaluate like what
Mm-hmm.
skills and qualities and characteristics do kids need to be successful, whether they go to college or trade school, and
Yeah.
are they getting them? Like there needs to be, we need to update the education system. And again,
Yeah.
a whole education system was created so that you could go through sixth grade and we could create factory workers. But we're teaching. I'll break it down for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're still trying to teach kids what to think, and we got to start teaching them how to think, and then we got to give them the skills that they
True.
need to
Yeah.
go get a job. And what's fascinating is I just read something. I don't know if it was Forbes or what, but it was. There's a bunch of data out on this, but basically 70% of the jobs that my kids are going to have when they get out of high school or college don't even exist yet.
Hmm.
Isn't that
How about that?
wild to think about?
That is wild. Yeah.
So my question is, 8 hours a day from kindergarten to 12th grade, that's 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing with those hours? Like we have to make them employable. We have to teach them how to solve problems. We have to teach them teachability. We have to teach them how to
Mm-hmm.
learn. We have to teach them
Mm-hmm.
how to figure stuff out, not write a thing, get an answer, check a
Mm-hmm.
box
Yeah.
to go to the next grade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
I'm one to believe.
I'd
Yeah.
love to see
I'm one
school
to
support. Yeah,
yeah.
I'd love to see
Yeah.
school support teachers a lot more too. So,
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I'm one to believe that when you get out of high school, you should be able to From everything that you've learned in high school, you should be able to actually get a job without feeling like you have to go to college. And I have my whole
You
opinion.
should be highly employable.
Yeah, yeah, and I have a whole opinion. Like I can talk about the college system too, and I'm not very fond of it.
First time in our nation's history, there's a negative ROI, but we don't have time to get into that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gary Vee will tell you all you need to know about that.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I can talk to you forever, and you know that. So I know you have to go. So let me get you one more question and get you out of here.
Yeah, I got about 10 minutes, so perfect.
You got about 10 minutes? Perfect. Okay.
Yep, five to 10 minutes, yeah.
Gotcha. So, what motivates you to keep going when things feel difficult or uncertain? Perhaps this is a more personal question.
That is a really great question.
Family. Yeah. So,
yeah. Are you talking about just in general with my career or in my family or like?
I'll tell you what, let me make it a twofold. So before you even answer that, so just for my viewers, being that you are a pastor, so let me ask you a question that, somebody
question?
would ask a pastor. Yeah. So I was, whenever we did a small group, I think about 2-3 weeks ago, and then a gentleman asked you, so I'm a Christian. I've been a Christian my whole life. And sometimes something along the lines that I find it hard to tell somebody to believe in God with all these other religions that we have out there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to paraphrase you since you're here. I love the answer that you give him. So again, because we have 8 minutes, I want you to give that same answer just so my viewers can get a,
Yeah. So and you're tapping into the why. I mean, again, my why is deeply 1000% rooted in my faith. And by my faith, I don't mean a belief system. I mean my personal relationship with Jesus, who he is, who he was as a historical figure, as a leader. And I believe that makes a strong case for a deity, and how I believe he's moved in my life has absolutely informed and shaped my worldview. And again, I'm following him on this pathway. He did a couple things that have probably really revolutionized my life. Number one, beyond like that he died for all of our sins, and people can, whatever, I'll get to that in a minute, but he added value everywhere he went.
Yeah.
And he's the greatest, and he's the most influential human of all times. And you can't argue that, because he was nobody to nobody when he died, but now he's got more followers and more corners of the earth than and so like just from a pure influence standpoint. So, and then with that said, it's like, okay, so he was an influencer, he was a leader, and then he made this statement.
Ultimate influencer.
The ultimate influencer, the ultimate leader. But then he made this, but he also, here's the crazy part. He didn't have a podcast. He didn't have an army. He didn't have an economy. He didn't have a throne. He didn't have a home. I mean, crazy. But then he said, I didn't come so other people could make their life about me. I came to make my life about other people. He said it this way: I didn't come to be served, but to served. And so I'm like, man, like, I think that's the goal, is how can I add as much value to as many people as I possibly can? That's my why. It starts with my wife and kids every day. And then I just want to bring the best out of people. Now, the caveat to that is I get that from my relationship with God. So I'm not striving for a broken world to give it to me incompletely. Do you know what I mean? And so because I feel like I get that from him, the source, because he's the source, I have more to offer than like, because what is it? If you're drowning, you can't help somebody get air. You know what I mean?
No.
My air comes from him. I can give air to other people. It's like when the plane, they said, if we lose oxygen, help yourself and then help the kids. That's kind of a real thing, And so I think, but my why is, I think Jesus has gotten a bad rap. And I think if people would give him a chance to be who he is in their life, and we would do a better job of presenting him for who he was theologically and historically, it's the most compelling story ever. Imagine, I mean, I can kind of sum it up in almost every world religion ever throughout history. It's what do I have to do to get to God? It's all of them. Say this prayer, penance, rituals. Christianity, Jesus, following God, and he claims he's the only one. He's the God. He's the only one who said, I know you'll never get to me, so I'm going to come to you. I know you'll never be able to make up for what you did wrong, so I'm going to do it for you and offer this substitution if you'll trust me with your life. And so every other religion where God is saying you got to do all these things to be right with me, and half the religions, you don't even know if the gods are angry and you don't know where you stand. I can always know where I stand with God because it's in his word. So I think that's, again, kind of answering both questions. Like, I can't convince people that I'm right. Like, bro, like, our job is to love people, be an example of what God is like, and point them towards the truth. God's job is the one that changes them, and that's his job. And so I think I'm not intimidated. I'm like, try it all and see which one is still standing at the end.
Yeah.
Like, my faith is so strong. Like, well, I mean, I have friends that were New Age and they were doing all the stuff, and it's like they tried all of it, and at the end, New Age was gone and all the other stuff was gone. It's like, but guess who just kept showing up in their world? Jesus. You know what I mean? And so I think we have to be careful not to like, and then there's a whole couple generations that are like, they don't want to have anything to do with our God because it was so like, you're bad, you got to do it my way, you're wrong, you're
Mm-hmm.
terrible, we're right.
Yeah.
And versus like, man, like let's be like Jesus, let's point people to Jesus. And so I think that the faith thing for me is, and I'm willing to respect somebody where they're at. I think we want to
Of
be real
course.
quick to be like, you shouldn't be there, you should be here. I'm like, hey, how many times have you heard me say from the stage, permission to be where you are? We're all on
Mm-hmm.
this journey together. And so I think, for me, I think that's a big part of it is the where are you at? And for 6,000 years of human history,
Mm-hmm.
God has been unbelievable at revealing himself to people. Like, he doesn't really need our help. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we get to be a part of that. But I think in light of that, and I'm answering the question, kind of paraphrasing what I said at the
Sure.
men's
Yeah.
group
Yeah.
a few months ago, or a few weeks ago. But I think one of the greatest things I can do for somebody I want God to like show himself to is pray for them and believe that that's going to happen, and continue to share what he's done in my life without being heavy handed or forceful, and letting them know, like, hey, whether you choose this or not, like, I'm still going to love you and be your brother. Like, again,
Mm-hmm.
that's what's missing. And so I think I kind of answered all of it, but that's the
Yeah.
like the faith approach. And then my why, what keeps me going, it's the same thing. Is I said this at a lot of our new friends, but I had a good family growing up in a good church environment where God was love and he was welcome, similar to kind of I think the experience
Mm-hmm.
here.
Yeah.
And I just grew up real quick. I realized not everybody had a good home environment and not everybody had a good church environment, and Jesus was like always mad at them and telling them why they were going to hell. And I like,
Mm-hmm.
so very humbly, I feel like kind of the mantle that God's asked me to carry is to
Yeah.
redefine like who Jesus is for people.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, the Jesus that they've rejected is not the true Jesus, and it's not the Jesus of the Bible. It's a
Mm-hmm.
really bad version of him. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, if you give him a chance, and that's what I love about what we're doing here is a lot of people are like, they were done. They gave God one last chance, and they're like, well, if it's like you guys are saying, like, I'll try that, but that's way different than what I grew up with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
No, this is great. This is great. So again, because you have to go, I could talk with you forever.
yeah, yeah,
My like, I agree with you 1,000%. I just feel like over the years, I was raised a Christian. I was born in the Christian faith, but I've seen so many different versions of Christianity, and I think it really does Jesus a disservice because like
yes,
they're trying to portray him, whether it's just like what you said, like heavy handed, like a quid pro quo type of guy. Like
right,
if you don't do
right,
that, then I won't give you this. And then you have the prosperity gospel, which I cannot stand. I've been to churches where it was that, and I have stories after stories about how they treated us and reason why
yeah,
I'm not in one. And again, it's
right.
not
And you hear
to
those stories,
me.
you're like, man, I
Yeah,
probably would leave too. That's stupid.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So like when my wife real quick has a stillbirth, and you kept saying it's because we didn't pray hard enough.
that's garbage,
Again,
bro. That's
again,
garbage.
exactly. So like when you tell somebody that, you basically saying like this church is for the people who have mastered faith, and if something doesn't happen, it's not anybody else but your fault. Like if like you don't belong here because we believe in God wholeheartedly. Look at our lives, we're so great. So I think that's so
Well,
horrible,
it's not even
and
biblical. Jesus said,
it's
"In this life,
not.
you're going to have trouble." Well, to your point, you know what you just that example you just gave to what
Mm-hmm.
people say to your wife. Do you know what that is? That's a violation of one of the Ten Commandments. That is literally what it means to take
Mm.
the Lord's name in vain.
And,
To take the Lord's name in vain is to
yeah,
attribute things to God and His nature and His character, and to speak
yeah,
on His behalf about things that are not in His nature and His character, and that He is not saying.
yeah.
You know what I mean? 'Cause
Wow.
and it runs
Yeah,
people off. So, but
yeah.
yeah, I think we gotta stop speaking for God. He's like, I
Yeah.
got this. I
Mhm.
mean, share your testimony, share your faith,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
that heavy handedness it hasn't worked for anybody ever.
No, no. We forget our place. We were messengers, but
Do you
that's it.
remember? Do you remember
We're
in
conduits.
do you remember the series I did in Timothy where I said, so according to Paul, the greatest threat to Christianity is poser
Yeah.
Christianity.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
Muslims. It's not
Yeah.
atheism. It's not Taoism.
Religion. Yeah.
Religion and
Yeah.
fake
Hmm.
Christianity and
Yeah.
he says
I
it in the
remember
new.
that.
And so like it's the same 2,000 years later in our part of the world as it was for Paul in Greece.
Yeah.
In the Roman
Yeah.
Empire back then.
Right. Right. That's awesome. Last message. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Corey. I really
It's
do
been
appreciate
great to
it.
be on it. I'm glad we made this happen.
Yes, me too. Me too. As I'm, my goal is to, as little my voice is right now, but I'm believing in God, wherever He
Yeah.
wants this to go.
Amen.
That's how far it'll go. So I'm trying not to get too caught up in just like, the followers, views, and stuff like that. At some point, this will do exactly what it's supposed to do. So thank you for taking the time. And for anybody watching this, again, if you get value out of it, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, like it, subscribe. Kids, future kids, next generation, please keep your head on the swivel and question things and do your research, and don't just follow the herd and just keep hanging on to what's right. And what's right is not always what you believe is right. It could be something completely different. Keep researching, keep looking up to God. Whether you believe in a God or not, just believe in the truth. The truth usually leads you to God, and keep doing that. Cory, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. I'll see you on Sunday. So
I'll see you in a few days.
yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good
See you,
one,
my
everybody.
friend.
Yeah, take care.
Hey, yeah, you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Like, subscribe, and share it. Help me spread the word.